The state of Afghanistan has a long history of conflicts and instability. The Taliban, an Islamist militant group, has occupied and claimed several territories in the state, including Afghanistan's capital Kabul, since the conflicts began in 1996. During the 23-year conflict, both the Taliban and Afghan security forces have shown disregard for international humanitarian law, and the conflict has seen the Afghan populations at risk of mass atrocity crimes, including acts such as rape and torture. In 2001, following the events of 9/11, the United States responded by bombing Taliban forces in Afghanistan, and the Taliban was formally defeated. However, the Islamist militant group has remained active and has since made considerable gains in its territorial and political control of Afghanistan. The Taliban has since escalated attacks on civilians in urban areas in an attempt to undermine the government's ability to function. In 2004, elections were held in an attempt to provide a strong presidency by adopting a new constitution, establishing new executive and legislative branches. The majority of those that were elected were US-backed warlords and strongmen. The presidential elections generated popular enthusiasm, and participation was about 70%, with 40% being women. The state of Afghanistan has had a heavy US military presence for the entirety of its conflict. In 2008, the United States President George Bush sent an extra 4,500 troops to Afghanistan. Following this, in 2009, the US presidential successor of George Bush, Barack Obama, sent an extra 4,000 US personnel to Afghanistan to train and bolster the Afghan army and police for support for civilian development. In 2017, the Afghan government implemented successful measures to decrease civilian casualties. However, attacks from the Taliban still occur, leading to 30 killed and more than 50 wounded in an attack on a military hospital in Kabul in March 2017. In 2018, there has been an increase in violence on both sides, from the Taliban and Afghan security forces. More than 100 civilians were killed when a bomb-laden ambulance exploded in the state's capital, Kabul, which was attributed to the Taliban forces. There has also been a surge in suicide attacks and improvised explosive devices by anti-government groups, and an extensive use of aerial and search operations by pro-government forces. 2018 also saw an 11% increase in civilian deaths, with a reported 63% of civilian deaths being attributed to anti-government forces, including the Taliban. Pro-government forces were also responsible for causing 24% of civilian casualties. Crimes against humanity have occurred in Afghanistan from both pro-government and anti-government organisations. The International Criminal Court previously began an investigation into the events that took place in Afghanistan in 2002. The International Criminal Court wished to explore the crimes against humanity that has not only been committed by the Taliban and the Afghan government, but also the US military. The complexity of the current crisis has undermined the ability of the Afghan state and the international community to implement their responsibility to protect. On the 24th of April 2019, the International Criminal Court said it will no longer pursue its war crimes investigation. Now, in 2019, it has been reported that for the first time in Afghanistan's history of conflicts, more civilians have been killed by Afghan security forces than anti-government forces. The United Nations released a statement that suggested pro-government forces were responsible for 54% of civilian deaths during the first 3 months of 2019. Both the United States and the Taliban have held peace talks since October 2018, but fighting has continued on both sides as each look for leverage in their negotiations, with civilians coming between the crosshairs.